Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. Welcome to this webinar opportunity. We're 15 or 20 seconds to give a few more people the chance to sign on, and then we'll start talking. On for just a minute. And us to and interest you in the topic before us. Everyone, again, thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Barron here in Philadelphia at the Temple Collaborative on Community Inclusion of Individuals with Psychiatric Disabilities. I'll talk more about the collaborative in a moment. Today, as you can see, is welcoming religious communities, hiring examples of faith-based initiatives to help individuals with mental conditions participate fully in the life of religious congregations. We're glad you could join us to review what a recent publication collaborative of the same title. Krista, could I have the next slide? Speakers are myself. I'm just going to be speaking and introducing the topic for a few minutes. Krista Andrade from the National Mental Health Consumers Self-Help Clearinghouse. She is the author of the report I'm hoping many of you have had the chance to read, as well by two of our inspiring examples. Back for a bit.
Do you want centers?
No, slide right here, and then we'll go to the next one. We're joined by two of our inspiring examples, Reverend Myers from the Mission Peak Unitarian Congregation in California, and Reverend Alan Johnson, who's the founder of the Interfaith Mental Illness out in Colorado. And thanks to the three of you for joining. Chris, give me the next slide. Today's on the strategies for developing welcoming congregations. This is a product of a partnership between ourselves at the Temple Collaborative and the Mental Health Consumer Self-Help Clearinghouse. That is a 5-year grant, research and training center grant from the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research. We are looking in a variety of research and knowledge training activities at these programs and practices that help people rejoin everyday community life with the works that we and communities can offer them. National Mental Health Consumer Self-Help Clearinghouse is also federally funded and is designed both to empower individual consumers in taking control over their own lives and specifically to promote consumer-run programs and to support their development. Worked on this project together. Krista, can I have the next slide? The broader focus that we have here at the collaborative community inclusion. So I wanted to talk for just a moment about what we mean by that. We start with a recognition that many people with mental health conditions are essentially isolated from mainstream community life. That large numbers of people are living in typically mental health-based residential programs have a continuing problem of several decades length. 85% of people with long illness, serious mental illness, mental health conditions are unemployed. 85% unemployed. 50%, many people rather report that they have only 50% of people in their social networks as others without mental health conditions. So we know from this data and a lot of other data that people are quite frequently quite isolated, despite the fact that they really do want to participate in the life of the community around them. Define community inclusion in a number of ways. You see that first definition from my boss, Dr. Mark Saul, who's the director of the center. Community inclusion is the opportunity to live in the community and be valued uniqueness and abilities like everyone else, Formally, I often say that community inclusion is what is for. And hope and control of your life are all good, but they're not goals in and of themselves. They are goals in service of something, and we think for many people that something is broader and more satisfying engagement in a variety of community activities that they choose. It might be getting a home on their own, a good few friends. These are the things that most often turn up as key goals in surveys of consumers. But they're also interested in participating in civic activities and being recreational programs and engaging with family. But recognize that for many people, particularly those with the most serious mental health conditions, a broader participation in community life is going to require two kinds of support, which we've worked on a great deal. It involves defining policies, programs, and practices that community mental health centers and psychosocial rehabilitation programs and peer-run programs and the county and state mental health administrations that support them can do, as a thing that they can do to support people who want to re-engage in community life. At the same time, we realize that there has to be some support from the community itself, from the very places, central programs, employers, civic organizations, the Y, and so forth, who play a more active, assertive role in reaching out to people and helping them to feel more welcomed in the community. And that's sort of what we've been working on the last couple of years. Krista, could we have the next slide? Look at welcoming communities, and particularly looking at the concept of welcoming congregations. Why we focused on congregations and religious life? Well, for a couple of reasons. There's a lot of interest among the people that we talk to in reconnecting to congregations or starting new relationships with new congregations. Like most Americans, congregations an opportunity both for an expression of their faith, but also an opportunity for fellowship. Americans see the church, their synagogue, their temple as the center of their connection to community life. When we've surveyed peer specialists, and you may have seen an earlier report from us on the role of peer specialists, that they feel constrained in helping people to connect to the congregation of their choice, partially because supervisors, for a variety of reasons, are uncomfortable with peers playing a role in connecting people. I want you to look at that report for a longer explanation of that. But we also know that while many faith-based mental health, many congregations have faith-based mental health education programs to inform their congregation about mental illness, where to seek help, how not to be stigmatized and embarrassed by it. Not many have gone the additional step with that information, how to welcome people with mental health conditions into the congregation and involve them not only in attending services, but participating in the life of the congregation. We did a very important survey in our development on this issue some time ago when a broad number of consumers what kinds of community activities they were involved in. 9% were going on Sunday and Saturday and Friday to religious, but that's all they did. They got up, they went to the religious service, and they came home. They were very clear they wanted the fellowship part of that religious engagement. Trying to figure out what it is that we can do to promote this notion of welcoming congregations. Krista, could the last of my slides, please? So, Consumer Clearinghouse, where Krista is our partner, focus, and they decided the way to go about it was to gather information about inspiring examples of the of both mental health programs, but also congregations themselves to create welcoming congregations. And the report that came out of that is something Krista's going to talk about in just a moment. But she does, I wanted to say we're committed not only to making this publication widely available, but also this webinar available, and it will be recorded and available for people who weren't able to join us today. We're also interested, as Krista will talk about at the end of the session, to offering training and consultation and technical assistance to people who hearing and learning about it and learn some of these inspiring examples are really interested in going further and seeing if we can. Chris will tell you more about that. Let me just mention that tomorrow, those who are on the call will receive an email with a questionnaire, what you thought of it, so please look for that. And with, I'm going to turn this over to you and sort of let you introduce yourself and the survey and what we found.
Great. Thank you, Rick. As Rick mentioned, my name is Krista, and I work with the National Mental Health Consumers Self-Help Clearinghouse, and we partner with Temple Collaborative. This project is very important to the Clearinghouse. We offer technical assistance, information, and referral on a wide variety of topics and a wide variety of ways which mental health peers can involve themselves in their communities. We get many requests from individuals who want to find welcoming religious communities or engage more fully with the community that they already attend. This project provides a resource to anyone choosing to start an outreach. This can mean congregants, it can mean faith leaders and clergy, and it can also mean people with lived experience of mental health challenges themselves. We went about this by developing a survey that asked about activities going on in parishes and religious communities and mental health organizations across the country. We sent a web-based questionnaire to constituents of both the National Mental Health Self-Help Clearinghouse and also the Temple University Collaborative on Community Inclusion. A variety of activities undertaken in their parishes and communities to include people with lived experience of mental health issues or peers. We're interested not only in efforts like support groups and counseling, which are very helpful in and of themselves, but all activities that to people in the main life of the parish, with opportunities for volunteer and leadership positions as well. First of all, programs to educate and counsel congregants, and we asked further about programs to welcome new congregants who have mental health conditions. We asked if faith communities worked with local community mental health programs and how so. How do they reach out to people who attend local mental health organizations? We asked if they provide referrals to local community mental health programs or local community mental health programs provided referrals to them as faith communities. And especially, we wanted to learn about programs that encourage and support congregants with mental health conditions to attend services, congregational groups, others with mental health conditions who are new to the community, and contribute to the congregation in various other ways. Our interest was to learn about faith communities that were developing strategies, very specific strategies for creating a welcoming environment for people with mental health challenges. And what exactly were they doing for congregants? Was successful in fully integrating mental health peers. So we received 101 responses from across the country. These were from clergy, congregants, and individuals working at mental health organizations. Many of the people we spoke to fit into two or all three of these categories. We spoke to clergy who also had lived experience. We spoke to clergy who were family members. So it went across the board. We spoke to people with lived experience of mental illness whose involvement in their congregation became a path to wellness, and further became a way for them to help others with mental health engage fully in the religious life of their community. Out of these 101 responses, we spoke to 34 individuals at length, interviewing mainly over the phone. Conversations were fruitful, and they revealed that religious communities across the country are very interested in reaching out to those with mental health issues in their congregations, and that people with lived experience of mental health conditions themselves were seeking to reach out to others, bring them into the fold, and to know that there are others with similar concerns in the faith community. Communities offer support groups and individual counseling and education. And these are wonderful services, but this survey sought to learn about programs that go beyond basic support. We heard from several congregations and mental health organizations whose efforts to reach out include involving people with lived experience in the organization, congregation. Organizations like Pathways to Promise and Mental Health Ministries that make training, technical assistance, and education materials available to religious communities. And they have a lot of really wonderful information available on sites. Practices like companionship, which we'll hear about later, and the Caring Clergy curriculum also assist congregations, clergy, and concerned congregants to bring programs to their faith communities. There are also statewide mental health organizations like Sacred Creations, which I'll discuss a little later, comprised of people with lived experience of mental health challenges that are working to assist the needs of peers in religious communities. We spoke to interviews. We noticed people would come up on the same barriers over and over again when trying to establish their mental health outreach or mental health ministry program. The first of which was stigma, or a lack of knowledge about mental health challenges and those who experience them. People actually who are messages that experiences like depression and anxiety can be handled using faith and prayer alone. And we noticed in the stories that clergy can do much to dispel this myth by speaking out about mental health challenges from the pulpit and calling on members of the faith community to reach out to those who experience them. We noticed that various education programs undertaken in these faith communities, like Second Sundays or having speak about their own personal experiences of mental health conditions, could be very helpful. The next barrier is a lack of training or knowledge about how to go about establishing such an outreach. As I mentioned before, there are now some wonderful technical assistance organizations that are stepping up to provide this training, like the Caring Clergy curriculum. There's companionship training. Marge will tell us more about the Caring Congregations curriculum in a few minutes. The third obstacle for faith communities was the lack of time, of resources to get a mental health program off the ground. Again, there are organizations that are stepping in that understand the time constraints that clergy are under and how busy they might be, or others, leaders in faith communities, and how practical resources can go a long way in helping faith leaders to start to establish these programs. When we talked to successful programs, there were 4 steps or strategies that were common to all of them. We know similarities in the way people undertook developing successful outreach programs. The first is an effort to educate, as I mentioned before, congregation on mental health issues. This means clergy speaks from the pulpit to educate their congregation about mental health challenges. It can mean that members of the congregation, perhaps peers or members or both, connect community leadership or clergy with information on mental health and its impact on their particular faith community. Some congregants we spoke to hold second Sundays and invite people to speak about topics related to mental health. Most congregations observe Mental Health Week in the first week of October and Mental Health Month in May. Many faith communities have welcoming committee members trained in welcoming those with disabilities, including psychiatric disabilities. The next step we noticed was commitment. The next step involved the faith community as a whole taking a vow or commitment to be inclusive of and welcoming towards those among them with mental health challenges. And Alan Johnson is going to tell us about a covenant called WISE a little bit later. This stands for Welcoming, Inclusive, Supporting, and Engaged. His committee undertook as a way to publicly commit to engaging with mental health peers. Was winning peers. Subgroups are very beneficial, as is counseling, but full integration means that peers are involved in all aspects of their choice. For example, an existing support group can give peers leadership roles, like group facilitator. In addition, peers can volunteer in various capacities, join church clubs and groups, become ushers, liturgists, Eucharistic ministers. Clergy, peers, and family members can speak publicly about their experiences. Local leaders can identify individuals they serve that want to attend religious services and refer them over to local faith communities. And the fourth was advocating. Including peers is usually an ongoing effort, but once effective outreach is established, then religious communities can start to engage in advocacy on behalf of people with mental health challenges in their families. This can begin with just staying informed about legislation regarding mental health and contacting elected representatives when decisions are being made that affect people with lived experience of mental health issues, attending events on mental health and recovery, staying in contact with national advocacy groups like Mental Health America, the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance, and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. I'm going to introduce our other presenters. I'm very happy to have them with us today and to benefit from their knowledge and the work they've done in this area. First, Reverend Alan Johnson is the co-founder of the Interfaith Network on Mental Illness, of which the Caring Clergy Project is a part. He's a member of the First Congregational Church, the United Church of Christ, where he is the chair of the church's Accessible to All and Mental Health Ministry, and is the chair of the UCC Mental Health Network. Reverend Barbara F. Myers at the Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Fremont, California, where she serves as a spiritual director. She regularly presents the Caring Congregations curriculum and the public TV access show called Mental Health Matters Alameda County, which explores mental health issues. She's also produced a video series featuring individuals telling their recovery stories. Reverend Johnson?
I just launched in. Great to be part of this. I have really been appreciated the kind of work that you, Krista, and others have done around the developing, welcoming faith communities. It's a great resource, and it's very detailed. I like that fact that it is very specific. So just so it's clear that there are three hats that I have, actually. One is as a member of the Congregational Church, First Congregational Church here in Boulder, Health Ministry team. That is as one of the co-founders of the Interfaith Network on Mental Illness. The other person who is a co-founder is Joanne Kelly, also very involved in his concerns and issues. And the third one is the national organization, the United Church of Christ Mental Health Network. Can I things that you? Okay. I do this.
Changed.
Oh, you changed them. Okay, good.
Yes.
I have 6 slides because there are 4 questions that you asked. Change them. Lastly, describing your congregation's program, how you feel it promotes the full of people with mental health conditions in the full life of the church. They're components. Keep going. 1. So these 6 components I'm going to talk about really is, they're really part of what the mental health ministry in our congregation. Over the last 7 years, we've this kind of outreach, these kind of programs, and it became very clear that indeed we have what's called adult educational programs. It's called the second Sunday of every month, except during during the summer. We have a focus on accessibility and mental health, and we've done those, and it's all done by people who want to inform and engage people. We then support group for mental health and wellness. We started 5 years ago. We've done 120 now, one because last Monday we did go on 20 such meetings. It's open to the community. It's not just the church. It's just the church provided the space. A wonderful that persons can come in and find safe enough space where they can say out loud what they're experiencing. Breaking the silence on mental illness, on mental health challenges is huge. And how do we provide that safe enough space, sacred space, where people can bring their personal story, which is where the power is anyway. And that's how we got involved in all this kind of anyway at the congregation where I am. My son has lived with bipolar disorder for 26 years and substance abuse, and a brother who had died suicide. So those are the things that keep us going because we care. And there should be point number 3 on this slide. Sundays during May, special speakers, people that are not only part of the congregation but from across the country. Actually, we've had Renaman, Susan Craig Schroeder, a lot of wonderful persons who are able to talk about what mental health is about, and the congregation focuses on that. You already mentioned, Krista, so many things as well, and which I'm saying, just reiterating right here, and that is so simple if the clergy person, faith leader, is aware enough and cognizant, aware enough, able to say, okay, we are these are persons that have mental health conditions. That can be speeches, sermons, prayers, and just put it out there by name. Don't do persons by name, obviously, but the situations, the concerns, so that if it's actually public, I think that people can feel that, oh, I can be here. I'm here because they're acknowledging these kind of reality truths that so many people live with. Next slide. So that went pretty fast. So the free use of the congregation's facilities, that's huge. I kind of call that actively passive for a community to allow the use of their facilities for free. A really great statement of what the congregation is committed to. That can be the family program, which we do, the spiritual support. We have a Center for Healing, which has a sliding scale of therapists. We have many 12 subgroups, and these programs are recognized, and members of the congregation are aware of the facilities to do these things. That is really for coming on the path of recovery and dealing with their own challenges. Covenant. This again, welcoming, inclusive, supportive, engaged. It took again several years for us to get to this particular point, but the congregation has lived with covenants. The United Church of Christ is open to all places. So we're Progressive Christian Church, and we have decided that we wanted the whole congregation to embody by vote annual meeting of the congregation that we are committed to being a wise congregation for mental health. This is for all challenges in their loved ones. And again, action that we have created, and this voted of October, and the church is embodying that. And actually, this resolution now is going to go to our National Church of Christ in Cleveland this June. Hope the whole our national body will vote in order to encourage congregations to take this action. On that, so on some information if people want to know more about that. And the next slide. You say, what are mental health challenges been participating fully? Now, this is a person who came to our congregation first to hear Craig Renenbaum. Some of you might know Craig, and he was talking about mental health. And here she was just a person who has been not part of the church for a long time because felt not really accepted. Part of it didn't belong, was not affirmed, was not dealing with issues in this kind of a context. Decided to come one afternoon to listen to this program, and she learned that actually the congregation would talk about mental health challenges. It was the first time hearing that as well. And she's become a facilitator for the Spiritual Support Group. She's mental health ministry team of our congregation. She has spoke at our annual Mental Health Sunday. She lives with bipolar disorder, is becoming more public about her mental illness. And again, a slow building over years. She has gotten to the point where she's safe enough in some place where she can name what her own challenge is and how she's managing it and really thriving through it. And asked about a couple of examples. This serves on our board's Church of Spiritual Life. She preaches to the congregation. She's on the search committee for the new minister. She's in this congregation next year, but she's not public about her mental illness. And just the next bottom slide there. Yep. There it is. I want to name the self-identification, and therefore you know of who is participating more fully and does not knowledge or is obviously not apparent that indeed a person is living with a health challenge. I think there are many people in our congregation that I happen to know, but members do not know of those who are dealing with the mental health challenge. Next slide. But that really is the issue. The main issue is how do you get people together, connect them, so then bring their energy together, and then find ways to support events. And it takes to do that. And next slide. A little bit of advice. Just people who are mutually mental challenges and seek their commitment. It's getting those connections together where people meet each other and say, wow, we are not alone. We are not isolated. Yes, live with this stuff. Get together because that's what the energy is. Then you can clergy, faith leaders, counseling, whatever it is that opens doors. And so we go. Next slide. There are other PowerPoint presentations I put together around the congregation for mental health, with the 10 steps how to start a mental health ministry, and those things. My email address there, and it's about my time.
I'd let give people a second to write down the ES there at the bottom. If Allen, 2004.
Go ahead. I'm sorry you're doing it.
Oh,
Yeah, wonderful website, which is it's the INMI. That's the Interfaith Network on Mental Illness.us. INMI.us. Great resources, and that's where the connection is also with the Caring Clergy Project. Thank you.
thank you so much, Reverend Allen. I'm going to turn to Reverend Barbara F. Meyer, who's going to talk about caring congregations. Barbara?
I'm very happy to be speaking. I have been engaged in maybe focusing on mental health issues for now 10 years and have done a number of things which I've learned in a way what has worked and what to impart to you some of what I've done and some messages that I try to put over in what I'm doing. Can I have the next chart? I'll talk about the public witness I have personally experienced, and then I'll talk about two courses that I have developed. One is called the Caring Congregation Curriculum, another is Mental Health Information for Ministers. And then talk about what I come to as a summary of what a congregation's role would be in people with mental health. So I have lived experience myself. What my own personal story is that a short summary of it is that I had postpartum depression, and when a congregation there was a lot of engagement and wonderful support from people, and that is what helped to recover. And what I've learned to do in this ministry is a service that's focused on mental health. I'll tell some of my story, not because my own story is particularly wonderful, but because I know and have learned that when somebody who's in authority or someone who is respected by the community stops and tells their story, it's safe for other people to be able to do the same thing. So at the end of my sermon, ask the people to or spirit if they or a loved one is living with a mental health difficulty. And the response is that 80% to 100% of the people will stand up. And nobody can believe how many people are standing up. The comment afterwards is saying, people would talk about, well, my sister has bipolar disorder, or my daughter, or people say things I've mentioned before. It suddenly becomes okay to talk about it because they know that almost everybody that's there is living in some way with health difficulties, and many of them have been afraid to say anything about it. And in fact, many of them are coming to church to get hope and encouragement in their struggles. The most effective way that I discovered to combat stigma, and I'll leave it to all to an exercise to try out in your church or have your minister try out. It's not actually the minister that stands up and tells us all ministers how lived experience, that it's getting a person in the congregation who is affected to stand up, will have the same kind of an effect. Next slide, please. When I first speak 2 years ago, first thing I did was I created this curriculum called the Congregation Curriculum. and designed for congregational education. 7 workshops for the congregation can use or can tailor for their own experience and educate their members about mental health, and they might be on that issue. The first workshop is sort of an introduction to what are mental disorders and their consequences. So, we talk about definitions and some of the things that happen, stigma and so forth that happens because of it. The next workshop is talking more about specific mental disorders and how they're diagnosed. And this isn't to make people armed diagnosticians. Instead, it's to help people understand what people go through and what kind of things they're dealing with. The workshop is about a history of mental disorders from ancient times. The workshop is looking at special populations of children, elders, and minorities and some of the special challenges. The workshop is talking about how health issues are treated and how, what kinds of treatment are normally given, and both by peer support. Focus on family and friends. So about the experience of a family who has some difficulty in life of their own family, having someone with a mental health problem. They're suffering too, trying to figure out how in the world can I support my loved one. So talk about, especially about, what friends and families experience and how they go through, what they go through and what services are. And then talk about the role of the church. So what is it that a church can do in order to be more engaging of people and supportive of people in this process? The congregation goes through this whole series, then we say our congregation. Next slide. Another resource that I developed for ministers, because I had a lot of ministers telling me, I don't have time to take a class, I don't have time to put on 7 workshops. I just have these problems coming at me all the time. And I want to know what is it that I can do when something pops up. So I designed a short reference for guide for ministers to use when there's general public information in it, then talking about specific mental disorders and what would be helpful to them. The section about suicide. There's a section what families go through, because many times ministers hear from family members who are struggling with these issues. Then there's a section about religion and spirituality and mental health, and talking about when the minister needs help, because minister people, and many of them have mental health challenges, and many of them are afraid of disclosing those. And then a number of handouts that I have of basically, somebody has difficulty, wants to know what is it that they can do. I have a handout saying, here are some things that have worked for other people with these kinds of issues, and maybe some of these might help you. And a handout for family members for the same thing, so the minister can just copy it and hand to the individual to say, here are some things that have worked, and maybe some of these might work for you. Next slide. Then the next couple of slides, I want to tell you about what the main messages are in both of these resources that I've created. The main message is in difficulties, it is a matter of taking pills, and that's the end of it. To a person's recovery. The person has to take care of their body needs. They need relationship engagement. They need some sort of an environment that has fresh air and healthy ways of engaging spiritual support. They need educational support or work for a place to play and to have fun, carrying in mind. So what I tell people is that when they're looking at individual, they need to look at all of those issues. And the church has a pretty, a primary role, certainly in spiritual things, but so are involved in relations, in helping people cope with their work environments, and help people learn how to have fun and play and be social. I make the point that recovery is the elimination of all symptoms, and that that people have symptoms, but they interfere with their life and keep them from having a meaningful life. That's where the test is there. And when I'm working with somebody and trying to understand, I visualize this picture and ask myself, what's missing? Help the person with whatever it is that's missing. Okay. And the main message is of what a congregation can do and what is the goal in helping a person heal. Calm, reassuring place to heal, love and acceptance, hope in this hospital, in recovery, especially if they've had recoveries in the past, or exclusion or jokes about mental illness in church or people. Constant when needed. If needs to something, you can confront them, and if they're not addressing it. Sermons, classes on mental health, and finally referrals when they're needed. Okay. These a step to a mental health ministry that Dr. Gunnar Christensen just sort of be followed in order. So for senior clergy and leadership, then a congregational task force is formed, and there's education for the congregation, then there's support groups that are formed, and then for the full range of ministry to those people who have mental health, develop behavioral guidelines, outreach, and perhaps in the couple ones, maybe employing people to do things or involved in advocacy. These have been used in messages, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Gunnar Christensen for developing that. And slide, sorry, one backup one. That's my contact information. If you need to contact me, happy to talk to anybody that wants to visit me. I have, or send me an email. I have a website as well for my ministry that has lots and lots of resources on it, and all the television shows and videos that I've made are available from that. And final slide, two resources I've talked about, the curriculum and health information for ministers are available on my website for free download, and the addresses of them. And if you get a copy of these charts or a copy as with your attendance, you'll be able to type in all of those things and find it. And I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to make all of the documents and curriculums mentioned here available, probably on the Clearinghouse website, all the resources mentioned, and we will email attendees to let everyone know where these resources will be linked to the Clearinghouse website. Talk about some other inspiring examples. We heard from Reverend Johnson and Reverend Myers about what they've done, and there were many congregations and individuals and mental health organizations that contacted us that were doing inspiring work. So I was going to talk about three things here. The companioning, I thought I'd talk about first, the companioning model. I think that Reverend Johnson mentioned It was developed by Reverend Craig Rannebaum in 1987. He was working with people experiencing homelessness in Seattle, and he works health chaplaincy that offers the companionship training to religious communities across the country. What it is really a way of befriending or standing side by side with, rather than having a mentor relationship. It's based on an intentional effort to befriend someone and to draw them naturally into the faith community. There are five focuses of major issues. They are hospitality, neighboring, sharing the journey side by side, listening, and accompaniment. The hospitality involves creating a safe space where people can address their needs and where you treat individuals, regardless of diagnosis or not, with the dignity and respect that we deserve. Neighboring involves cultivating a relationship as equals or neighbors, and can be as simple as starting a conversation or introducing yourself to someone and befriending them. Next, sharing the journey side by side means that a companion seeks to experience the world along with someone as if they're facing it together, instead of leading someone or directly counseling them. Companionship means providing a companion or a friend with whom to view the world and discuss life issues as they arise. Listening is a key concept also in companioning. So instead of deciding what is important for someone, you let the person you're working with tell you what's important to them and what will help move them forward. This also involves withholding judgment. Brings us to accompaniment. Part of the role of a companion is after someone has identified the resources in the community that they're interested in, a companion can assist them find a counselor, help them to compile the documents they need to apply for financial assistance. Companions can't take on performing the tasks for someone, but they can help identify them and point individuals in the right direction. The overall objective of companioning is to create a safe space for people dealing with life issues, including mental health challenges, and to listen with compassion. The DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church is a congregation that we spoke to that has developed a really wonderful outreach program. We have a pastoral ministry associates that offer counseling and support to people going through difficult times. They raise money for their local Samaritan Interfaith Counseling Center. Provides faith-sensitive counseling services on a sliding scale, and many of their congregants make use of this service. A companionship care team that is out to people who are isolated and supports community members with mental health conditions. They developed this by using the companionship model we just discussed. Members of the team include people with lived experience of mental health challenges on their own pathway to recovery. And again, as described before, they seek to walk side by side with people in mental health recovery. Get a 3-hour training initially, and then meet twice a month in groups to discuss their own concerns, their concerns as companions. The bulletin includes information on the team, and after services, to coffee hour, companions wear name tags identifying them and circulate. There's also usually a circle of chairs in the back of the room where companions and I'm talking to congregants who feel they need support. All the companioners have received emotional CPR training. They also conduct seminars to address stigma and prejudice and ask parishioners to come forward with their own recovery stories. Another really wonderful organization we spoke to is Sacred Creations, and this is a mental health nonprofit organization that's statewide in Illinois, begun by A.J. French. And members have lived experience of mental health issues. H, again, who found cites involvement in her own church, The Bridge, as a major facet in her own recovery. She joined the church. She had been in mental health challenges for some years. and volunteer work, which eventually led to assuming a leadership role, and she went on to assist many others as well. Safe Creations advocates to improve the systems that individuals with mental health conditions via work with legislators and the media. They include faith communities in their outreach, and they've developed a workshop to equip church leadership with information on mental health and recovery. There are many other health organizations and religious communities listed in the document. If you've not had a chance to see it, it is available on the Temple Collaborative website. The next steps are to go beyond the document and offer to individuals and faith communities and health organizations that are interested an opportunity for training, technical assistance, or consultation, waiting everyone to submit a proposal for mental health outreach. What type of outreach for, what type of assistance and you would need. We these proposals until June 1st, and we'll choose the 5 best applications to start providing technical assistance. I'm going the floor up now for questions. And Rick, I believe your question?
Well, yes. Let's see. Entered the chat room. Krista, where do people find the application for this free training and technical assistance?
It's being made available on the Temple website with an email sending everyone the link. To make sure that if people are interested. We have a question from Joanne Kelly. To register in our directory of faith communities and organizations operating at this intersection of faith and mental health. You listed at the INMI homepage at www.inmi.us. That's the same website I think that Alan was directing us to. We're just about out of time. Are there other things that anybody wants to jump in on the chat to ask? Well, thank you all for sticking with us. I want to thank our presenters particularly for wonderful presentations. These are indeed inspiring examples, the ones that Krista shared and Barbara and Alan. Thank you both for your presentations, but also for your wonderful work in this area. It is inspiring to us to see people who jump in and really get things done in their communities. Krista, thank you so much for your hard work on the document. It's a real accomplishment. We're proud to have partnered with the Clearinghouse Collaborative to get this. And like you do, that a lot are going to be asking us how can we go further, and we'll try to figure out how we can provide the assistance and training people need. And we are just about at the end of the hour. Thank you all very much for participating, and good afternoon.